Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of The Democratic View. I'm the hostess. My name is Phyllis Italiano, and with me I have a very lovely lady as well as an outstanding councilperson for the town of Southampton, and her name is Bridget Fleming.
Hello, Phyllis. So
How
glad
are
to be
you?
here. I'm great.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
Well, I asked you to come on because I received this from the Peconic Land Trust, which is an organization I have supported. You know, anything that has to do with the land or the water or the animals of this area, I support. And this one, and they sent me this brochure, which had an article in it about some land that you, not you in particular, but you in Southampton
Right.
had purchased. And it's very special. So would you like to explain to us why this particular
Yes.
33 acres, I believe it is?
Sure. It's 33 acres. It was called the Danilewski Farm in Watermill. And it was a preserved farm. And we are the first in New York State, the first municipality in New York State to approach this land in this particular way with the land trust. The land trust purchased the land, and then we purchased what are called enhanced easements on the land to ensure that it'll always be farmed. So it's a little bit complicated, but that's how it happened. It's the second such purchase that's happened in the town of Southampton, but it's the first that the town actually purchased these enhanced easements. So just to back up a little bit, preserved farmland in the South Fork of Long Island, on the South Fork of Long Island, is some of the most expensive farmland in the United States. Certainly the most expensive in New York State. Just to put a couple of numbers on it, in New York State, generally, preserved farmland can cost anywhere between $10,000 and $17,000 an acre, sometimes even less than $10,000 an acre for preserved farmland. In other words, land that development rights have been stripped off of, so it can only be used for farming or open space. Here on the South Fork, people are willing to pay as much as $300,000 an acre. The average is around $120,000 at this time, but you see, if you look in the newspaper, you see preserved farmland advertised as preserved lawn, or it's basically so that some of these big homes can have acres of lawn. Or ensure that there's nothing that's going to be built to burden their view shed, right? So, but for years, when we intended to purchase farmland to keep it farmed by taking the development rights off it, we were actually just sort of feeding into this market rather than ensuring that food was going to be grown on that land. So the Peconic Land Trust came up with this solution where, in order to bring the price of the land down and ensure that it's always going to be farmed, in this case, we, the town of Southampton, spent $95,000 per acre to buy additional, well, that's over the original price, to buy additional rights off the land. This land, you can't have horses on it. You can't farm nursery stock. And one of the unique...
Or vineyard.
This one, I believe you're right. No vineyard on this one. There was an earlier acquisition that happened many years ago now between the county, the town, and Peconic Land Trust that included some of these, but it was actually the land trust that purchased the enhanced easements. That one, I think, did not include vineyard. It was just silent as to vineyard. But those are some of the big ones that we can take off, and that really reduces what somebody is going to be willing to pay for it. And so that allows people who are growing vegetables to be able to afford to buy it. The interesting thing about this one, and what's really unique about it, is it has an affirmative obligation of the landholder to actually farm the land. So if it's fallow for 2 years or more, in this case, the Peconic Land Trust can go in and lease the land to someone who's actually going to plant seeds and grow vegetables.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's the only way that we see it. Well, we're hoping that we'll continue to develop different vehicles that'll allow us to meet the original intention of the CPF program and keep farmers farming. It was the primary purpose of the Community Preservation Fund, which is now 20 years old and has collected over $1 billion for land preservation.
Amazing.
Isn't that
That
something?
is amazing.
It's
really.
one of the great privileges of serving on the town board in Southampton, to be able to implement that program and spend those dollars. We've collected more than $500 million since 1998 that we've spent on open space, historic resources, and agriculture. But we need to recognize that there's a crisis in farming because of those exorbitant prices. Luckily, we have a lot of support because you have the slow food movement, you have edible schoolyards, community gardens. Lots of people are, sort of from the grassroots, if you'll excuse the pun, are coming up and wanting to grow food and find out how to grow food and eat food that's local. But until we solve the problem of these exorbitant land prices, you're not going to have retail farmers able to give us those farm stands and those great tomatoes that come out of the Bridgehampton loam.
I write a column for my Clearwater Beach little newsletter called Cooking Long Island's Bounty, and I had to get it ready for the next issue. And all I talked about at the opening was the winter, and that there's no farm stands open yet, which is amazing because they usually are by this time beginning to offer a few little things, and there's nothing open.
We still have a lot of ice out there.
I
Just about a week and a half ago, I was talking to Ed Warner, who's a trustee in Southampton and a bayman, and he said he was there clamming in Mecox, but they still have a foot of ice. I don't know if that's true now, but a week and a half ago.
Well, it's true. I mean, we had right at 3 Mile Harbor, it had dissolved for about a few days, and then all of a sudden, it was 2 or 3 days of more ice, covered with ice, with looked like chunks of ice as well. And it was like, wait a minute, how can I go swimming on April 1st like I always did?
Oh dear, are you going to do it? You have a wetsuit?
Are you kidding? No, I would never use a wetsuit. No.
Oh, you don't use a wetsuit?
Never.
Ah.
No, I go.
You swam on April 1st without a wetsuit?
Many years, but not this year.
No,
Not
good
this
for
year.
you. I'm glad.
But I also wanted to mention, because you are probably the person who introduced to me the phrase Bridgehampton loam.
Oh, I am?
Yes.
That's so funny. I'm not a farmer myself, but I do recognize what's valuable about our unique place in the world.
Well,
here.
it not only is, it is probably the most valuable soil, well, it is the most valuable soil in New York State. Now, it may also be the most valuable soil in the country because it is very, very rich.
Yeah.
And of course, I went to the North Fork as a mere slip of a girl. I'm not going to say how old I was, but I was there in the early 50s, where the North Fork was
nothing but farms.
One big farm.
Yeah.
One big farm,
Yeah.
and it was glorious. Glorious. As a matter of fact, whenever I meet anybody who tells me they were born and raised here, I want to sock them because I'm so jealous of missing the privilege of being here during those particular times.
I think people who were born here sort of must have done something right in another lifetime, right?
Was that it?
It's like heaven. I mean, we live in
I was
heaven.
probably Marie Antoinette then, or somebody
good
like
for
that. Well, I don't know. She
Good
lost her
clothes.
head.
That's true. She had great clothes until then, though.
But one of the things I certainly notice when I go below 27, going to Southampton, because I like to go that way only because you get some beautiful views, and I just see just enormous houses being built. I mean, enormous houses that when they can't afford to hold them anymore, because they're all built on speculation. They're not built for any particular person. They'll be for sale for 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I can show you some houses in East Hampton like that. And I know they're being built on Bridgehampton loan. And it just breaks my heart. And I say, oh my God, don't these people know that there are 2 things we're going to have a shortage of in the next 30 years? Food and water.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things there. One, of course, is that we have to keep up with the market. I mean, one of the reasons why we have the kind of dollars to spend on the CPF, which is it's a transfer tax. So it's a 2% transfer tax on all real estate transactions over $250,000. And that's paid by the buyer, and it goes into the bank, and we use those funds to make these kind of deals. Obviously, we have our coffers are so full in part because of that development pressure. So the whole program CPF was designed to ensure that pressure serves to actually contribute to what we use to resist the pressure, which is so important. If, as you say, we're going to hold on to that sort of vista that you see there in Watermill, right next to that is a house going up that may very well be a spec house, but it's large. So we need to make sure that we continue to implement this program and that we do it in creative ways that are obviously keep within the letter of the law, but at the same time recognize what those really astounding market pressures are. What people are willing to spend is what causes that kind. I mean, who would have thought in 1998 that someone would be willing to spend $300,000 for 2 acres of lawn, But they are, because that's the sort of market that we're in. So that's an important thing. It's also really important from my perspective that we keep a careful eye on our planning, the zoning that is in place, and who's on those land use boards to implement that zoning and to protect it, really. Because the Zoning Board of Appeals can issue variances that override it. We now have in Southampton, we have something called the Planned Development District, which is a vehicle whereby a developer can ask the town board, not ZBA or planning, but the town board, to change the zoning on a particular parcel for mixed use. And we've used it. We used it for affordable housing, which was, I thought, a great victory. We used it to save the Canoe Place Inn, which is an iconic hospitality structure in the Hampton Bays. But it was controversial because there are townhouses that are going to be built on the canal as part of that deal. But now we have others that are coming in. One right now is happening is a supermarket that's being proposed on County Road 39, and there are others coming that way. So we need to be mindful.
Supermarket on County Road 39? Yes. Are you kidding?
Yeah, I have to be careful because we are in public hearings on that. So
I understand, but I don't have to be careful. I can say, oh my God, what are they thinking?
Yeah.
Because County Road 39, in a month or so, month and a half, is going to be
it's a busy road,
bumper to bumper.
Very congested.
I mean, I'm sure even on the next Friday, which will be Passover, and people have to get where they have to get by sundown, as well as Good Friday, we're going to see an awful lot of traffic on that road.
Without a doubt.
And it's...
We spent millions of dollars not long ago on that famous Cops and Cones program to widen the road up by the Lobster Inn. And I think it's very important for us to keep our eye on the idea that we're now stewards of that improvement, those millions of dollars that were spent on behalf of our constituents. And we've got to be super careful that we protect that investment and not just jam things up a little bit further down the road. So we're still considering the traffic implications. The applicant has put testimony in. He brought an expert in a couple of times to talk about what their position is with regard to the traffic. And I think that's definitely the most important thing we've got to keep our eye on. As the press has said, I'm skeptical at this point in terms of what I've heard so far about how we can mitigate the impacts on the traffic there. But as I said, the hearings are continuing, so we'll see where we end up with that. But we need to keep an eye on our planning and our zoning and where we're approving building, what kind of building we're approving, with an eye towards protecting our farms and our waterways and the safety of our community.
And don't forget the sole source aquifer.
Without a doubt.
Because that is
so
very
critically important.
I mean, we all know that the water we drink comes from under our feet.
That's right.
And I don't care whether you want to call it Suffolk County Water Association, which is not a part of Suffolk County, it was a private organization. You know, no matter what, it's going to be the same water as the water from my well.
Right, there are no options there. That's
Absolutely.
very true. Yep.
And that water must be protected because when that water goes, I can assure you, my house will be the first on the market, and I will get the hell out of the East End.
Oh, well, let's hope that doesn't happen. Not a good thing.
I don't want to lose my bay. You
No.
know, I love that bay swimming.
Right.
But it is something that's it's very precarious right now.
And those are two different things to really think about. You have the groundwater, the sole source aquifer, what we're putting in our bodies, our children's bodies, our families' bodies. And then you have the surface water, which, you know, the bays in the ocean, which is the source of our marine industry, as well as your swimming and all, you know.
And the recreational industry, which is what brings most people here.
Without a doubt. It's like, I feel like we're carrying the vase, you know, and you don't want to drop it. It's so precious and wonderful. But there's that constant financial pressure, the market pressure that I feel like you've really got to keep an eye on, and just remember what is it that we value. We don't want to lose the golden goose, right?
Oh, my dear, you have said it all. I don't understand why the people who are so anxious to develop have never really gotten to the point of being able to see what I call around the corner. I mean, that's the future is, if you don't maintain this area, you're going to lose it.
Well, it's interesting that when the Community Preservation Fund was being debated, and it was a very long, hard-fought victory, as you know, but eventually the Assemblyman Thiel and Senator Laval, who sort of brought it over the finish line from the legislative standpoint, they brought real estate on board. And real estate, the real estate industry recognized that this would ensure the property values here on the east end of Long Island. So there is a recognition there, but you have those individual moments, those individual transactions where individuals are feeling the pressure of, gee, I can make this kind of money here. And that's, I think, when the short-term thinking comes in. And that's why it's so important to have those planning goals in place and have people in place who are willing to adhere to them and promote them and protect them. It's our jobs, you know, but I don't think everyone necessarily sees it that way, but I do feel that we have something very precious that we've got an obligation to hold on to and protect.
That's why you're here. Because I feel the same
Oh, in the
way.
show? Yeah. I know. We see eye to eye on that.
I mean, good God, I remember the first time I came out here, and I've been 35 years to Fire Island, which is also a great place.
Fire Island is great.
But I got to tell you, when I turned that corner on 27,
yes,
and I saw East Hampton, I said,
oh, East Hampton? No, Southampton.
well, I turned the corner in East Hampton, and I said, when my girlfriend had invited me out, and I said, I think I fell in love.
Yes.
I probably the longest lasting love I've ever had. Because
that happened to me with Sag Harbor. My husband and I came to Sag Harbor. He knew the area. He convinced me to come out for a weekend. And within 2 weeks, we had made an offer on a house. I just knew. Same like, you just know, you're in heaven.
Yes, I know. Well, actually, my sister and brother-in-law were in Watermill at the time, and I was going there, and my daughter was in Hampton Bays, and I was going there. And then I just said, this is it. I got to go. And I came to East Hampton and Southampton and Hampton Bays and even the North Fork. I spent 3 days. I think I looked at about 75 houses in that time. I started at 8 o'clock in the morning and ended at 8 o'clock at night.
Wow.
My house was the second one. And the thing that got me was the proximity to the bay,
Yeah.
because I really like to get in and do long 20 to 25-minute swims.
Nice.
And
It's beautiful.
I come
My
out
son
singing,
learned to sing.
heaven, I'm in
Exactly.
heaven. I mean, I
And
really,
my heart beats.
yes, you know. I mean, if Fred Astaire was there, I'd dance with him on the beach, but it's just such a glorious place. When I go to the city or to Westchester County, and I come back out, and it can be a freezing cold night, and I get out of my car.
Yeah.
I take long breaths of the air because
Yeah.
the air is just so pure and so beautiful.
It is. A walk on the beach will change your outlook in a heartbeat, right? I have the same. We live on the Little Peconic Bay in Noyac, which I believe is the most beautiful place in the world. But we have a little beach right by the house, so we can just walk. The ospreys are there, and incredible wildlife. You've got the egrets and the blue herons, and the plovers, the terns, the least terns. And then the beautiful colors. It's similar to Fire Island, which I also love. That nice muted beige and the greeny blue of the ocean, or the bays. It's not the same as any place else. It's really unique.
It really is. It really is. And I mean, I have 2 little grandchildren, and I mean, we've had experiences where, a turtle comes out of the woods, because I have preserve around me,
Lovely.
Little turtle comes out, we say, the turtle, and we all get quite excited, and, the children go thrilled to death. And the last time they were here, I had 3 deer eating on my front lawn, and we just stood there and watched them.
Yeah, wildlife can be magical. When my
Really?
son was 3, he learned to swim in Noyac Bay. And there's a little protected cove near where we live. And one day he was in the bay, and a tiny little diamondback terrapin hatchling swam right up to him. And he kept it, and he put it in a bucket, and he asked me if he could keep it as a pet. And luckily, I could call one of those young educators at the South Fork History Museum. Wonderful people. And she got on the phone with him, and she said he's about to go into hibernation, and he needs to eat constantly for 2 weeks, and if he's not able to eat, he will die. And my poor little guy had to put him back in the bay, and it took him about a half hour. He had the turtle in the bucket, and then at one time, without talking about it or anything, he took the turtle out of the bucket. He ran down. He had his little, bathing suit on. He ran down into the water. He put it in the water, and then he came running back, plopped down on my lap, and burst into tears.
Oh, God.
Oh, poor little environmentalist.
Yeah, but you know what? He probably will become something like that as he grows up, because
I think
of his.
all of our kids growing up here with the estuary and all the wildlife, it's in their blood.
It's like I tell my brother-in-law, Brooks, and I tell him all the time that he ruined my children. He made them beach bums.
Oh.
Because
Wasn't he on Fire Island?
Yes.
I thought their house was on Fire Island, because I used to go there, and I
Yes, it
loved
was
your
on Fire
brother-in-law.
Island, and
your
then it was to Watermill.
Oh,
But I mean, my children are devoted to the water.
Yeah.
And my son thinks that life is about clamming, and when
great.
one time they were clamming, and they were down by Accabonac, and into the water was huge sea turtle swam by him.
Oh.
And he stopped.
What a
and
treat.
called my daughter, and my little granddaughters were on a little float, and they all looked, and that kind of thing changes your life when you're a kid.
It should.
I mean, it really is an extraordinary experience, and that's what we love about here, and that's why we fight so hard
I
to
think
keep
so.
it that way.
Yeah, we have an obligation,
We
not
do.
only to our own children, but 100 years out, all the people who are going to be able to enjoy this place.
That's
we don't
right.
have any right to destroy it, from my perspective.
No, but our right is to do whatever we can to help it. I mean, I tell people sometimes, Del Cullum, who has been on the show, that if I see litter, I want to stop my car, except that there's cars behind me and I can't, but I want to stop and pick up everything I see.
Right.
Because it's just too precious a place.
Indeed, indeed. Well, we've eliminated the single-use plastic bag. I'm very thankful that East Hampton Town Board came along. I think they may have been talking about it actually before we were, but somehow it happened in conjunction. So our
Yes.
ban goes into effect April 22nd.
Wow.
So yeah, very exciting. There's no real purpose for those bags, and we were very careful to ensure that, you know, the heavier bags are still okay. Your produce bag, the see-through produce bag is still okay. It's just those ones that are made out of petroleum with the little handles, the single use that you see floating in the trees in the bay. Those are the only ones. We don't want them in our environment, and I'm proud to say we were able to get that passed after
Well, let's
many years.
just keep your eye on the prize, as they would say.
Yeah.
And keep working for those kinds of goals. I mean, to eliminate plastic, I wish I could eliminate all plastic from my life. I hate plastic.
Well, as a coastal community, we have a special obligation because there's so much plastic in the ocean. And we're right there on the edge of the ocean, so I feel as though we do have a special obligation to protect that resource.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and we want to just encourage you to continue to work on the behalf of the East End
Thank you, Phyllis.
in whatever capacity you choose, because I know you have a decision to make
Yeah, true,
in the
true.
future. And
Yeah. Thank
whatever
you.
you do, believe me, I will be supporting you.
Oh, we appreciate your support. I love your
Thank you.
show. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.